Hello everyone and welcome back to the Aimchess US Rapid knockouts. It's the third game between Magnus Carlsen and Jan-Krzysztof Duda. As we've seen, the first game ended by Magnus winning and the second game ended in a draw. Now this third game, it features a really awesome move and the entire game is pretty cool, so let's check it out and then we're gonna enjoy something else. Magnus with the white pieces opens with e4. Duda goes for the Sicilian defense. We have c5, knight f3, e6, and now b3 by Magnus, the Westerinen attack. We have knight to c6 and the bishop to b2, so the early fianchetto of the dark square bishop. We have a6 by black and now striking in the center with d4. We have captures, and now queen to a5 check. We have knight to d2, Magnus blocks the check, and now knight to f6. We have knight captures on c6. The d4 pawn is attacked, as the knight on d2 is pinned, but Magnus first captures on c6. We have d captures, and now bishop to d3. He simply defends his pawn. And now bishop to b4, preventing white from castling. If the king castles, you're going to lose your knight. You can play c3. The c3 square is defended twice, attacked twice in this case, but there is something you can do. This position has been reached before, and known moves are a3, just asking black, do you want to trade or do you want to move back the bishop, and also just c4. Those are the known moves, but the move Magnus plays is the move from the thumbnail, and here Magnus played king to e2. And if you think about it, it's very simple and straightforward. I mean, we want to move the knight, we want to get the rook into the game, and then later on we're going to play something like f3, f4, plays the king on f2, and it doesn't seem like black has any way of taking advantage of this. So how can we? And if, for example, if queen to h5 check, then we simply block with knight to f3. So king to e2, never played before, but it is as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. So let's see how Duda deals with this novelty. So obviously you could go for an endgame with captures, and captures, but you're already down in the match and you're going into an endgame against Magnus where he has the bishop pair. Maybe not the best course of action. So instead Duda just castles. He says, all right, Magnus will still need some time to get his king to safety. We have knight to c4 now, attacking Duda's queen, and queen back to c7. We have bishop to e5, further harassing Duda's queen, queen back to d8, and now c3. Now the bishop will move, and now we have our e1 square for the rook if needed. We have bishop back to e7, and now bishop back to c2. Again, Magnus offers a queen trade. Yes, now Duda will also have a bishop pair, but this light square bishop is just an ugly one. For example, if captures, it's gonna take you, a lot of time to get this light square bishop into the game, and like I said, you're already down in the match. So after bishop to c2, just knight to d7 by Duda, and now comes bishop to d6. Now Magnus says, all right, I'm going to continue in a principled manner. I'm going to trade off your active bishop, and then you're going to be left with this, pretty much useless bishop. So Duda starts with b5, chases away this knight, and he wants to further advance the pawns on the queen side, a5, b4, and then clear this diagonal for his light square bishop. So that's his plan. We have knight back to e3 by Magnus, and now comes a5. You could continue with something like knight to f6, bring the queen to a5, go after maybe the c3 pawn, but Duda's plan also has merit. We have a5, and now Magnus plays e5. So now the bishop is very nicely placed here. Now if black captures, you can even capture with the pawn here and have a nice pass pawn on d6, but more importantly, you've cleared this diagonal for your light square bishop. So here we have b4. Now black might at some point play bishop to a6, but it's still not clear, because if white plays c4, then the bishop on this diagonal will also be useless, and not something you want to do. But still, if c4, c5, then we clear this diagonal for the bishop. So Duda has some ideas of how to get this bishop into the game. But Magnus starts with queen to d3, just threatens checkmate, so you have to deal with that. We have g6, and now comes rook a to d1, putting a lot of pressure on this d file. We have bishop captures on d6, and now you could capture with the pawn or the queen, but Magnus decides that this pawn is better suited to remain on e5, and he captures with the queen. So queen captures on d6, and now Again, whenever you play bishop to a6 check, we're just going to block with c4. But if you try b captures on c3, kind of saying, okay, now I'm playing bishop to a6, then Magnus will play f4. And then bishop to a6 check ends up with king to f2. And Magnus's king is still very safe on f2. He's going to get the other rook into the game. And his position is just fine. So after queen captures on d6, Duda tries queen to g5, now putting pressure on the e5 pawn. And Magnus now just captures on c6. So first we have to defend the knight because rook captures, bishop captures, queen captures, just wins 2 pieces for the rook. So rook to a7, also the rook was attacked on a8, and finally now c4 by Magnus. And now after all is said and done, okay, Duda wins back his pawn, so queen captures on e5. The material is equal, but Magnus has a passed c-pawn, and it could be very unpleasant. If you're thinking about capturing with the knight, it doesn't really work. Queen to c5 now attacks the rook. The knight can't move because the queen hangs. It's a tricky position for black. So after this c4 move, we have queen captures on e5 by Duda, and now Magnus again just offers a queen trade. He says, okay, let's trade queens. I have passed c-pawn. Life is good. Duda, of course, not interested in this. He plays queen to h5 check. We have f3, and now comes f5 by Duda. And this is the critical moment in the game where he just gives up the e6 pawn for Magnus to capture so he can activate his pieces and somehow go after Carlsen's king that's still in the center of the board. If Duda was not down in the match, he would probably play something like queen to c5. Then Magnus would maybe trade queens, maybe not. Maybe he would just continue pushing and say, okay, if you want to trade, we're going to trade, but I'm going to recapture on d6. And this is probably what we would see. But Duda is down in the match, so we have f5, and now Magnus happily captures on e6 with check. King g7, we have queen back to d6. And now what do you play here? His threat is queen to d4 check, which would win the rook on a7. So here knight to f6 by Duda. Now this doesn't really do anything as the knight blocks check. So still queen to d4 attacking the rook, and now rook to e7. Now Duda wants to double up here, and perhaps he can do some damage along the e file. We have king to f2, Magnus unpins, rook f to e8, and now rook h to e1, bringing the last rook into the game. And now Carlsen's pieces are fully mobilized, and well, it's a question. What can Duda play here? Is the h2 pawn free for grabs? Well, not really. If you capture on h2, then knight to d5 is super annoying, as it comes with a double attack here. Also, the rook is attacked twice. So what can you do here? Not much. If you capture, you can't capture with the knight. The knight is pinned, but other than that, you really don't have a good move. So of course, instead of capturing, Duda finally develops this bishop. It took him some 30 moves, but the light square bishop also joins the party. And now Magnus plays queen to f4. Freeing up the d6 square, or rather the d file for this rook to d6 move, which could come in handy, putting pressure on the knight. You will be able to attack the bishop here, maybe go after those pawns, and still it doesn't seem like black has all that much to do here. So here, king to g8, Duda gets the king away from the dark square diagonal, and now knight to f1. Magnus is just up a pawn, and he wants to trade rooks. So what do you play here? Duda starts with g5. He has to try something, otherwise he can just resign. We have queen captures on f5, and only now rook captures on e1, rook captures and queen to a4 check. Now, of course, the king cannot move. So knight to g3, and now queen to d4 with check. We have king to f1, and if you notice, the white king made a nice square here. He started from e1, then king e2, king f2, king to f1. This is how 2800s play good chess. And here Duda trades. Rook captures on e1, king captures, and now queen to e3 check, but now knight to e2, guarding both c1 and g1. So Duda can continue harassing the white king. So Duda played king to g7, but now Magnus just played queen captures on a5, and it was in this position on move 38 that Jan-Krzysztof Duda resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You're threatening a queen to c7 check, which wins the bishop. If you try to move the queen to defend the bishop, then you lose the g5 pawn. Well, there's really nothing to be done here. Even if you manage to defend everything, you're going to lose the b4 pawn. Then you have 3 connected pass pawns to worry about on the queen side, and there's just nothing for black to even try. So of course here he resigned, and the fourth game did not happen, as Magnus won 2, and the second game ended in a draw. So Magnus wins the first match. And maybe you've noticed, maybe you didn't, but we didn't have a pause the video moment in this game, as it was pretty much nothing to be solved here. After Duda gave up his e6 pawn, it was pretty clear what Magnus had to do. But there is a beautiful position from the game Mamedyarov-Aronian, and that is this position. Mamedyarov has the white pieces and Aronian has the black pieces, and this is the current situation. Aronian captured on a4, he captured a pawn here with the rook, but now he's completely lost. Mamedyarov has a really fine attack, but you have to choose your moves correctly. So feel free to pause the video and figure out how to win this for Mamedyarov while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this devious plan. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen to h2. Tripling here on this h file, and now your plan is queen to h5 to g6, and you have to realize how beautiful this is, because now okay, black could stop this with queen to f7. We're gonna discuss this, but let's say just rook captures on c3, just so you check out the plan. Queen to h5. Now we play rook to a8, we bring a rook to help out with the defense of the back rank. Now comes a rook to g6, and now the black queen doesn't really have a good square. If you go here, we simply win the queen with this move, and if you go to e7, we still play rook to g8 check. We don't care, and after captures and captures, king will capture. Notice that the d5 pawn is guarding the e6 square, so now we simply deliver checkmate. Queen h8 check, king f7, rook h7 check, king g6, queen to g8 check, queen has to block, and now queen captures. It will be checkmate. So this is one way to do it. Another way is well, a bit of a sturdier defense for black. If black after queen to h2 defends with queen to f7, now guards the h5 square, we still play it. We don't care. And now after queen captures, we're going to capture with our rook here. And now how do you play this? The f6 pawn is hanging, but also we're just threatening rook to g6 to g8. So you don't even have time to worry about your pawn. So you have to defend against this back rank idea. So now we capture on f6, and now everything is going to fall, and the white simply has a winning position. For example, rook captures on c3. We can even play bishop captures on g5. And now if, let's say, king to g7, now we're just going to move the rook and play bishop to f6, and that's game. So if black prevents this, let's say king to g7, now we capture on d6, and again bishop to f6 is coming, h8 is coming, and that's it. So this was the position, but Mamedyarov did not finish this precisely. Aronian defended, and in the end it was Aronian who won this game. So congratulations to everyone who found it, as you've defeated a very strong player. So yeah, that's the game, or the games. Hope you guys enjoyed them. I would like to thank Seth Hansen, Jessica Rikavicius, Hayden Quincy, Aditya Parasarathi, and Christoph Alexandra Sopa for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this very nice event, checking up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.